Hi foodie friends, my name is Chef Jessica Ann with Savory Experiments, and today we are making my famous seafood mac and cheese. But before we get started, make sure you like, subscribe, and comment so you get all of our videos that come out every single Wednesday. Okay, so what makes ours different? Let me just tell you that we use actual seafood. I know this isn't a secret, but sometimes seafood mac and cheese has more seafood seasoning than it does actual seafood. Ours has a full pound, sometimes more, of seafood in it every single time, along with that seasoning, 2 different types of cheese. It is decadent, it is dreamy, it is the ultimate comfort food, and it deserves to be on your table. We are gonna get started over at the stove. To get started making seafood mac and cheese, we are going to make a bechamel sauce, which is a French mother sauce that is a base of butter and flour. Those are the fats that are gonna hold it all together. Add in some milk and then melt the cheese in. But this is a seafood sauce and I'm Italian, so we got a few things to give it a little bit more flair. We're gonna start with the 6 tablespoons of unsalted butter. You know I like to start with unsalted so that I can control the salt level. And seafood seasoning, shocker, is heavily salty. So you want to make sure that you get the unsalted butter. If not, you're gonna have a hard time. You might be overly salted. Let that start to melt. And next comes my Italian roots here. They're smelling pretty fragrant today, a little pungent. I have a half of a yellow onion, and the recipe calls for 2 whole cloves of garlic, big ones. Usually we measure garlic with our heart, but for this one, I don't want to take away from the seafood flavor, so I actually went with just 2 cloves of garlic. Let the butter melt. We're on a low medium setting here. Butter has a smoke point at 350. We want to stay under that so that it doesn't burn. I'm gonna wait until it starts sizzling just a little bit. I like the onions to be translucent, but not fully cooked before I start building in the rest of the sauce. Because we're gonna also stick this in the oven, I want them to be kind of a par cooked instead of a full cooked. Enough to infuse the butter with flavor and give the sauce a lot of oomph, but not so much that they're kind of limp dead onions. Awesome. Okay, when everything is melted and sizzling, I'm gonna add in 1/3 cup of flour. The flour is going to whisk into kind of a paste, and this is what's gonna thicken the cheese sauce after we add the milk in. This is called a roux. If you want the roux to have a lot of flavor, like a gumbo, you let it go and brown and sizzle a lot. But today we're gonna go with a blonde roux, which has a little bit less flavor so that it's more cheese forward. As we're whisking, I'm gonna pour in 3 cups of whole milk. Yes, whole milk. Please don't go skim on this. This is a decadent comfort dish. This is not the place to be cutting calories. Okay, whisk it on in, let the flour dissolve in the milk. It'll of course have a couple of little bits in it. Sometimes those are hard to tell because of the onions and the garlic. You'll know it's time to add the cheese when the sauce has a little bit of give on the whisk. That's how you know it's thickened enough with the flour and that flour is dissolved into the milk. The next step is to add seasoning. I'm gonna do 1/8 teaspoon of nutmeg. Not something you usually see in a cheese sauce, but let me tell you, it is amazing and it helps amplify all of the other natural flavors. And of course, seafood seasoning. I'm in Maryland, so it is Old Bay only. We are Old Bay country over here. I'm gonna use about a half a teaspoon. Clearly it's not coming out very well. If you get a little bit more in there, no one's gonna know the difference. We're gonna use that again in our panko topping, so that's not the only seafood seasoning you're gonna get. Again, you don't want it to be too salty. Okay, I'm starting to feel that give in the sauce, which means that it's also time for the cheese. I have 2 cups of freshly shredded white cheddar cheese, 3/4 cup of a freshly shredded Parmesan cheese. You can switch up the cheeses. If you really like a spicy cheese, go with like a pepper jack, even a habanero, that's always delicious. You can use a yellow cheddar if that's something you enjoy. Smoked Gouda is another favorite pick of mine, as well as a manchego. While you're whisking in the cheese, you can turn off the heat because you don't want it to get too hot. Then the sauce will start to separate. As you can see here, it is super thick. It's holding on to the whisk there. And that means that it's time to go into the pasta. This cheese sauce smells amazing. The nutmeg really brings it together. Okay, so I have 1 pound of cooked pasta. Doesn't matter what shape of pasta you use, but I am going to say to use something that has a lot of nooks and crannies. This gives the cheese sauce something to stick to. You can use a corkscrew, I've got elbows, anything that's fun, even stuff with fun shapes is a great start. Okay, the trickiest part, getting all of this cheese sauce into the bowl. So let's see if we can do it without making too much of a mess. Ah, it's so velvety. And next, the seafood, because it is seafood mac and cheese. The steam coming up here. I feel like I'm getting a facial. Okay, we have a little bit over 1 pound of seafood. Today I am going to be using jumbo lump crab. Again, Maryland. Love my crab in everything seafood, and shrimp. But you can use scallops, mussels, oysters, lobster, any kind of seafood you want, and as much of it as you want. You can even do dollops on top of the mac and cheese after you get done. Just make sure it is cooked, 1 little bite in there, cooked before you put it on in. Gently toss it all together. Perfect. Don't overmix it. All of those pieces of crab are gonna fall apart if you overmix it. Okay, 2-quart casserole dish. This is also a 9x13 pan. I've sprayed it with cooking spray because I don't want anything to stick. And with that cheese sauce, you know stuff is gonna stick. In fact, that's my favorite part. Those little crunchies around all the corners, those are the parts I go for. Okay, pour it all in. Tricky part. And this is why I need my husband here to help me. But he's not home today. No pasta left behind. Get on in there. Spread this out in the pan so that it's even. Pop this into a 400-degree oven for about 30 minutes. Everything's cooked, so really it's just letting it all marry together and letting the cheese really ooey gooey into the pasta. Seafood mac and cheese is out of the oven. It's hot, it's ooey, it's gooey, but it is not finished. We have 2 more layers that make this a super special dish. First, we are going to start by making a panko breadcrumb topping. So 3/4 cup of panko breadcrumbs. I'm gonna give them a little bit of an olive oil drizzle, about 1 tablespoon, but I'm totally eyeballing that. And of course, more seasoning. It is a seafood mac and cheese, and we are in Maryland, so we've got our Old Bay. I'm gonna do a 1/2 teaspoon, a little bit more than a 1/2 teaspoon, oops, but you know what? You can't go wrong with too much Old Bay, okay? 1/4 teaspoon of white pepper. I do like white pepper for this. It's a little bit more mild than a black pepper, but you can go black pepper. You can even go red pepper if you want to get a little spicy. And more nutmeg. So this is just 1/4 teaspoon of nutmeg, and that is what gives ours that extra special oomph. Mix that around so all of the breadcrumbs are good and covered in the olive oil. And if you need a little bit more, go ahead and add a little bit more in. It's just more flavor. Okay, got our panko evenly mixed up. Let's bring in the mac and cheese. See that? Large chunks of seafood right on the top. That is the way it should be. Actual seafood, not just seafood seasoning. Okay, next, more cheese, because you can never have enough cheese. I have about 1 cup of freshly shredded white cheddar. You can switch the cheese up here too. Go with the smoked Gouda, delicious Manchego. If you want to use a different kind of cheese than you used in the cheese sauce, be my guest. You can use more or less depending on preference. And then I also have another 1/4 cup of Parmesan. Yes, more cheese is better. Okay, and lastly, our seasoned panko topping. I love a little crunch on my mac and cheese. I don't care what recipe it is. It could not come with a topping, but I will make a topping for it. Get that on there evenly, and we're gonna pop it back into the 400-degree oven for about 10 to 15 minutes or until the cheese melts. And then you're gonna be ready to serve. The finishing touch, chives. You can leave these off, but you know me, I love color, so a little pop of green looks great, and that fresh crunch to go along with that pankoed seasoning topping is gonna be just perfect. Oop, rogue chive. Okay. It is ready to be served. And let me tell you, this is going to be the most requested dish. So get ready for people to ask you for the recipe and make sure you tell them where you got it. SavoryExperiments.com. Oh, the smell. I can smell the nutmeg, giant pieces of seafood. And there you go, foodie friends. From my kitchen to yours, have a fabulous day.